are little pockets of extra spin where you see all of this. There might be a brief spin-up tornado. This is very reminiscent of what we went through on Friday when we had all of those tornadoes. Most of them were brief, didn't stay on the ground for a long period of time, and fortunately they weren't uber strong, but it doesn't take much to cause some damage. And right now, we do have that tornado warning in effect for DeKalb County. This includes Chaminade, Hinckley, you're right on the edge of that, Sycamore on the northern edge. This tornado warning is going to be in effect until 6:45, so it's another half hour or so. Here's the deal with these storms. They are hauling you know what. They've been moving to the east at about 60 miles per hour in some cases, so this is not going to take long to move through DeKalb County. So if you are in Kane County now, start thinking about where to go in your home to take cover in case threatening weather moves into your area. Lowest level of your home, away from windows. If you have a helmet, put that on just in case, and make sure if the power goes out, you've got some alternate sources of electricity to kind of get you through. But here's a wider view of that line. It is right over Interstate 39 and heading to the east at breakneck speeds. It's going about as fast as you could go on I-88 and producing severe thunderstorms and also at least a radar-detected tornado. If this flashes, then we will know that it is an actual confirmed tornado. Somebody on the ground, emergency manager, will have confirmed that. But right now, it is a radar-detected tornado. If you're in DeKalb County, take cover now and don't risk getting injured as these storms continue to move to the east. My colleague Tim McGill is following these storms. We've been watching this stuff come out of Iowa. We knew this was going to be happening, and the timing so far is pretty much what we expected. And if anything, maybe a little bit faster, right?
Yeah, and you were pointing out these storms are really moving. As a matter of fact, I'll show you some numbers here. Right there, northeast about 69 miles per hour. So these storms are racing towards the northeast. They're guided by some very strong winds aloft. That's part of the problem. We've got a little bit of wind shear going on, a little bit of change in wind speed and direction as you go up through height. All the ingredients we need, kind of like what we saw on Friday in terms of these kind of weaker, still very dangerous tornadoes spinning up along this squall line. So that's what we're watching. Put in a couple of arrival times for the storm. Again, eastern Lee County, also DeKalb County under tornado warning. And it looks like it'll arrive in Stewart in about 3 minutes, Creston in about 8 minutes, DeKalb itself about 14 minutes, Sycamore about 19 minutes, Genoa 23 minutes, Albert 25 minutes, and Lily Lake around 26 minutes. So the storm is moving very quickly. Let's put this into motion here and track this storm. And again, if you live in any of these areas impacted by this tornado, as Mike said, you need to take cover, get into the lowest floor of your house, interior room. A basement is great underneath some sturdy furniture. But this storm is really moving very quickly. Let me take this off here and zoom in, and we'll get a look at the storm system as it moves off pretty quickly towards the northeast. Pause this here for a second. And there it is now. It looks like just southwest of Stewart. We'll get even closer at street level. Lee Road, Herman Road, McGurr Road, all in DeKalb County. All these areas, you're under the gun as the storm races off towards the northeast. This is a long line of thunderstorms. This is the only cell that's been warned for a tornado right now, but anywhere along this line, all the way from near McHenry County now, as it starts to push into your neck of the woods over the next maybe 15, 20 minutes, all the way down to Mendota, we could see some of these weaker tornadoes spin up. So we're going to have to watch this as it moves off towards the northeast. A little bit out of the ordinary for this time of the year, and this early in the morning in particular, to see tornadoes spin up. But we got the ingredients. We saw temperatures. If you headed out the door this morning, you felt it. If you're about to head out the door, you're going to feel it. Temperatures starting off in the 60s and 70s. And a strong cold front just behind us, adding a little bit of lift. Air very cold aloft, all the ingredients we need for some strong storms. Not only in addition to tornadoes, we have to worry about large hail as well. Oh, yeah. And damaging winds, too.
Yesterday's hail was absolutely incredible, how widespread and large it was, and there will be some hailers out there now. This is the wind field here, Tim, and you can see this as well. There's definitely at least a loose circulation going on right in this area here, not far from Paw Paw in the town of Rollo. This is in southwestern DeKalb County. Just enough rotation, a little kink in what's otherwise a line, and that's often where we look for these brief spin-up tornadoes. They're usually EF zeros, kind of in that 80 to 90 mile per hour range, but that's enough to cause some minor structural damage, and that's exactly what we're looking at. Now, Tim just mentioned hail. Let's take a look and see where we've got a little bit of hail showing up, and indeed, Lee County headed toward DeKalb County. There is some hail being detected in that line of thunderstorms as it races to the east now at a very, very fast speed. speed. So again, let's get you caught up on what we have. It is a severe thunderstorm watch for all of Chicagoland until 11 o'clock. This thing will expire. They'll cancel it from west to east before 11 o'clock. I mean, look, it's already, through there. You're saying, Mike, if there's a severe thunderstorm watch, how come there's a tornado going on? Just because it is a severe thunderstorm watch, that does not mean that you can't get these brief spin-up tornadoes like we're seeing there. It is mainly because the majority of the severe weather events are expected to be either or both damaging straight-line winds and or hail. And that is still likely to be the case. But embedded within this line, there will likely be some additional tornadoes, or at least potential tornadoes, as they move east at about 50 to 60 miles per hour. So that's the severe thunderstorm watch. If you're just tuning in, we are monitoring very closely the line of thunderstorms moving into DeKalb County, where there's just some additional signs of a minor rotation there that could put down a tornado. Tim, I know you're checking some of the chats. Have you seen anything where it's a confirmed tornado, or are we still talking about a radar-indicated tornado? What have you seen?
I'm checking the chats right now. No, I don't see anything. They're referring to this as a QLCS, which we know is those kind of tornadoes that spin up very quickly and are usually relatively weak, but still very dangerous. So these tornadoes could occur not only here, but along that line. Let's go back and take a look at where we're seeing some wind shear, as Mike was pointing out before. And our indicators, what we look for a change in wind direction. We've got inbound and outbound winds. That's what the radar can sense. So we're kind of looking inside the storm where we see that little change, whether that swirl. That's where we could see some rotation and where we could see a tornado. It appears to be right in this area. This is what we call a storm relative velocity right through here. And I'm looking at that in combination with some other shear markers we look at, and that seems to be the area right now near Shabana, moving off towards the northeast. This storm racing off towards the northeast now, actually about 53 miles per hour. So there's a very strong cell with rotation. Again, not confirmed tornado, indicated by radar. Might be hard to get some people out there this morning. Hopefully storm spotters have been activated, but it might be hard right at this moment to get a definite verification of that, but we'll be looking for that. It's moving off towards the northeast. Again, some arrival times for this storm as it heads to the northeast. It looks like Malta about 10 minutes, DeKalb about 15 minutes, Sycamore about 20 minutes, and Virgil about 27 minutes. So you need to take cover. You were under a warning. This is for east central Lee County, also portions of northern DeKalb County until 6:45. Need to take cover. Interior room, lowest floor of your house. If you have a basement, that's ideal. Underneath some sturdy furniture. It might seem silly, but take a bike helmet and put it on and get down. Yeah, because you're going to protect yourself from flying debris and items that could fall on your head.
Tim, you were putting the track on that storm and going into DeKalb County. We also have a severe thunderstorm warning in McHenry County, and here are some of the towns that are going to get hit by this particular cell. Union, the Railroad Museum there in about 19 minutes. Chemung and Harvard in northwestern McHenry County. That's about 23 to 25 minutes away. If you're on the square in Woodstock, get inside. That storm is moving in there within about 26 minutes. Coming out, and this is just, awful. You knew what happened in Belvedere, and here's one in Boone County that's headed up towards the Lake Geneva area in the next half hour or so. You can see that storm also producing some severe weather. Arrival times, Harvard 11 minutes, Williams Bay with the Yerkes Observatory 20 minutes away from there. That storm is moving to, look at the speed here, northeast at 61 miles per hour. That is absolutely incredible. So here is the main line of storms. This started in Missouri and Iowa a couple of hours ago. Tim and I have been watching this, saying, all right, let's see how this thing is going to hold together. And as he just mentioned, this is the time of morning when we usually don't get severe thunderstorms any time of year, unless it's maybe one of these overnight clusters that we call a mesoscale convective system. But a little while ago, Tim referred to this as a QLCS, quasi-linear convective system. It's a fancy name for a squall line, and that is indeed what we have pressing into far western portions of Chicagoland right now. Again, it gets you caught up on all of the current warnings. Here is the main one that we're concerned with, the tornado warning. It's in effect for about another 20 minutes. This is DeKalb County. Surrounding that, you get a little bit farther to the south. It's a severe thunderstorm warning for you in northern northern LaSalle County, then into McHenry County. That is the aforementioned severe thunderstorm warning, which will be in effect until 7 o'clock. We're going to be talking about warnings here, maybe a lot here this morning. When you have a severe thunderstorm warning, that does not necessarily mean that there can't be a tornado that pops up in that area. So when we mention a severe thunderstorm warning today, let that be maybe a little bit more of a serious cue for you to get to a place of safety than in some other situations when we're talking about severe thunderstorm warnings. Wouldn't you agree, Tim? I mean, this is really very similar to Friday. We had, hopefully we won't have 18 tornadoes like we did on Friday, but these are the kind of things that just kind of spin up out of these seemingly less intense thunderstorms.
Yeah, we saw this happen earlier this morning as we were watching that line kind of cross Mississippi. We saw at least one isolated tornado warning. We thought, oh, here we go again, and it looks like that's what's happening. But hopefully, yeah, not as numerous as what we saw. Friday was a very active day. I think we ended up getting 12.5 reports of tornadoes that day. So I zoomed in here on this storm that's being warned for in DeKalb County, east central portions of Lee County for a tornado warning until 6:45. And put kind of a track on it to give you an idea of where it is headed and when it will arrive. For instance, DeKalb in about 10 minutes, Sycamore about 16 minutes, Burlington about 25 minutes, Lily Lake, it should arrive in about 25 minutes, Hampshire about 28 minutes. A fast-moving storm moving at about between 50, 60 miles per hour. We saw at one point it was moving nearly 65 miles per hour, now about 50, 53 miles per hour as far as we can tell from radar. And it's headed off towards the northeast. Even if it doesn't produce a confirmed tornado, this is a tornado indicated by radar. Even if we don't get confirmation, at the very least, this could produce some really damaging winds. We saw yesterday some of the storms produce wind gusts up to 80, 85 miles per hour. As close to the city as out in a crib in Lake Michigan, we had a wind gust up around 84 miles per hour, and that could do a lot of damage without it even being a tornado. So that's what we're watching for. I've been checking the National Weather Service chat. It's where we go to kind of get the updates from the Weather Service and from storm spotters. And I'm hearing there's a possible funnel headed east from NIU, Northern Illinois University, in DeKalb by the stadium. Not confirmed, but this is from, I think, somebody that could be a spotter. A possible funnel headed east from NIU in DeKalb by their stadium there. So that's where we're at. Let's kind of zoom in on the storm, get you down to street level where we think the worst of it is, and that is anywhere from Fairview Drive here to Malta Drive, Harvester Drive, Gurler Road. There's DeKalb. So this is where the storm is headed. This is where it is. This is where it's headed off towards the northeast. Give you a broader view here. As Mike was pointing out, it's headed up towards, looks like maybe portions of northern Kane County before it's all said and done. This is the only storm that is being warned for a tornado right now. It's embedded in a bigger area that's under severe thunderstorm warning. But anywhere along this line, if one of these individual cells kind of breaks out or bows out ahead of this line, it has the potential to get some rotation and spin up a tornado. So a tornado warning in effect for this area until 6:45. That includes much of DeKalb County. And we just had another warning added here. I'll get you up to date on that. This is for now Kane County, not a tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning. That's in effect, Mike, for about the next half hour or so.
Right, yeah, that'll be in effect until 7 o'clock, and as you mentioned, that's a severe thunderstorm warning. I want to show this. This is the winds, and we're going to show you how fast essentially the straight line winds are associated with this. In northern LaSalle County, we're looking at a 65-mile-an-hour wind gust. In DeKalb County, 50-plus-mile-an-hour winds, and this is certainly conducive for damage. Whether there is a tornado or not, you have an awful lot of wind being reported right now, and I would suspect there's even a little bit of hail. Let's take a look at our hail tracker on this, and there are a couple little pockets of hail, not quite the same size or coverage of what we had yesterday, but you can see some of the hail coming out of Lee County moving into DeKalb County. This is northern Bureau County moving into northern LaSalle County. So yes, there is definitely hail embedded within that line. But this thing is already, look how quickly this has moved out of Lee County through into central DeKalb County. Tim has really been focusing there on what's been reported near NIU. We'll take you right on I-88 here, and right in there, you see that purple shaded area. That appears to be the most intense portion of this storm. Let's look at the storm relative velocity. Rotation, not really, screaming at you, other than right here, okay? Just to the east, maybe of downtown. Let's put a little bit of let's go zoom here on that, a little bit tighter here, and look at where that might be relative to downtown. All right, so here we go. Zoom in a little bit more. And looks like the center of the rotation is pretty much right over Lincoln Highway. That's 38. Here's Peace Road, east of campus there. And within that area is where there might be some rotation and a brief tornado. This is one of these things that it may be a funnel cloud for a while, and it briefly comes down as a tornado. Then it goes back up as a funnel cloud. It may not be in constant contact with the ground, which, of course, is what technically a tornado is. But we do have that tornado warning in effect now for a big portion of DeKalb County until 6:45, so about another 17 minutes. But that line is going to quickly move into Kane County, and I'm sure, Tim, that the National Weather Service, kind of just as a peremptory factor here, they put out that severe thunderstorm warning for Kane County, saying, hey, that line has produced a possible tornado there in DeKalb County. Let's at least give folks in Batavia, St. Charles, Elgin, that heads up that maybe the bad weather's coming their way, too.
Yeah, you're right there. Commenting that the rotation, as you just pointed out, has weakened with this storm, so that's good news. Still no confirmation of an actual tornado. We had one report of possibly a funnel cloud near NIU, near the stadium there, moving off towards the northeast. But this is moving so quickly, as Mike was mentioning, that things are rapidly changing. So hopefully this is a sign that this storm is diminishing. But what we're looking at is rotation trackers. So kind of going back through history and where we start to saw a little bit of rotation all the way back towards, say, Franklin Grove. And this is where it is currently, as Mike was pointing out, near downtown DeKalb. And that's where probably the last radar was detecting some stronger rotation there. But let's go ahead. They just took away my little tracker there, but let's put a track on it anyway and see where the storm is headed. Again, it's moving off towards the northeast. My estimate is right around there, about maybe 50, 60 miles an hour. So some of the towns in the path of this storm, and as Mike was mentioning, it's now moving towards northern Kane County. No official tornado warning for you. We have a severe thunderstorm warning, but that could change. The storm is moving towards Cortland. It'll be there momentarily. Burlington, about 12 minutes. Hampshire, about 15 minutes. Huntley, about 22 minutes. South Elgin, about 22 minutes. West Dundee, about a little less than a half hour. And Algonquin, about 27 minutes. So here's where the storm is heading. Hopefully, that's a good sign that the rotation is weakening with the storm. And again, we look inside the storm to see which way the wind is blowing. If we see that sign of rotation, it's not a guarantee that a tornado has actually descended and is making contact with the ground, but it's a pretty good indicator in some cases. So that's why we get concerned when we start to see that, because I think about 2/3 of these storms, when we see the rotation, end up producing a tornado. So that's where the storm is. Let me put that reflectivity here, just what we're used to seeing, plain old rain, and put this in motion here. You can see where the heaviest rain with this storm is now, again, in northern portions of DeKalb County. It looks like just west of Cortland. Let's pause this for a second here and focus on this storm cell that is of interest with very heavy precipitation. This is, let's zoom in and get street level on that. First, let's go up to DeKalb. DeKalb itself, downtown DeKalb, Sycamore Road. If you're familiar with NIU, you know where I'm talking about here, Lincoln Highway. That's where we're getting some very heavy downpours. So at the very least, we could be seeing heavy downpours, maybe some large hail with this as well. And then going just south of there, it looks like the storm, another storm has either popped up or the storm kind of split up a little bit. But in any case, we'll zoom in on this one. This is near Owens Road, McGurr Road. Very heavy precipitation here. Possibility of some damaging winds as well. And look at the movement on this storm. Northeast at about 64 miles per hour. That jet stream, the lower level jet, is just racing, roaring out of the southwest at about 50, 60 miles an hour. And some of that wind gets kind of translated down towards the surface. So even outside of these storms, we're going to see winds today all day long, gusting between 35, 45, 50 miles an hour.
I'm glad you mentioned that, almost like the storm split there in DeKalb County. And there is that heavier pocket of rainfall, maybe some rotation in there just north of Hinckley. It's about to cross over Interstate 88. So they're kind of almost two cores of that cell over DeKalb County. But let's hope that the rotation continues to weaken there, and maybe they'll be able to, maybe that's going to be the last tornado warning. We can only hope. But whether there's another tornado warning or not, this entire line is capable of producing wind damage. If you've got stuff that isn't tied down in the yard, maybe you got that trampoline out there, another one of these mornings where that stuff is going to be flying around. You got the garbage cans at the curb, they're going bye-bye as well. Severe thunderstorm warnings, McHenry County until 7 o'clock. Now Kane County until 7 o'clock. Northwestern Kendall County until 7 o'clock. And northern, well, more like northeastern LaSalle County also until 7 o'clock to account for the very rapid movement of this line of thunderstorms. Our tornado warning is now just a tiny tiny, thin. Let's zoom in on this here, because this is now really kind of a weird-shaped pentagon, kind of east of DeKalb. This is the tornado warning right here. That strange-shaped box. Very rarely will you see that, but it looks like the fact that they have kind of cut the box down. And when I say they, this is the National Weather Service. They're the ones that put out the official warnings. They've pared down the size of that box. Looks like that part of the storm now is the most concerning, the one that Tim first identified for you just a couple of minutes ago. And let's look, what's down the pike here? If that storm continues to move off to the northeast, maybe Pineview, Maple Park, Caneville, eventually Elburn and Lily Lake, you would be in the path of the worst part of the storm as it moves to the northeast, and you do not have a whole heck of a lot of time to get to a place of safety right now. This is moving at 60 miles per hour. So if you are in Kane County, I'd say especially western Kane County, maybe west of 47 now, take this storm seriously. It has at least a history of producing some wind damage, even if there has not yet been a confirmed tornado. Tim?
Of Rochelle and Compton, a report of a 79-mile-per-hour wind gust. So,
whoa!
Yeah,
in Rochelle,
and just south of Rochelle and Compton.
Okay.
So yeah, so we're getting some really strong winds with this. That's probably not from the tornado itself. It hasn't been confirmed, but even so, it can do a lot of damage. An 80-mile-per-hour wind gust. Wanted to focus on hail. We've been talking about that. That's one of the main threats with these storms. We saw yesterday reports of hail anywhere from around, say, ping pong size hail all the way up to near tennis ball size hail. And we've got a hail tracker on. I've turned that on to show you just south of DeKalb. This is probably that storm that was originally warned, but it has changed a little bit, and it's moving very quickly. But I want to zoom in here on this area. This is McCurr Road. This is street level stuff we're looking at here. Miller Road, Salmonock Road, and this storm is moving off towards the northeast. So a hail concern if you live in these areas. This is when you could see the arrival of some hail, maybe along with some gusty winds as well. Virgil about 13 minutes. South Elgin in Kane County, you could see some hail, at least some damaging winds, possibly two in around 25 minutes. Huntley about 28 minutes here. Let's go back and turn on the radar here just to show you. Oh, let me get back to that a second. There we go. And put this all into motion, give you a broader view. There is that squall line that we've been watching hold together as it formed earlier today across northern Missouri, southeastern Iowa, holding together, moving off towards the east, moving into an area favorable for the development and strengthening of these severe thunderstorms. We've got very cold air up aloft, relatively speaking. We had a warm front come through. You probably stepped outside this morning and felt the 60s and 70s. It felt like a late spring, not early spring. And we've got a little bit of shear, a little bit of change in wind speed and direction as you go up through heights. So all these ingredients coming together not only for hail, but as we saw, the possibility of tornadoes as well.
I want your opinion on this, Tim. You've been doing this long enough. Take a look. I've turned on the lightning display here.
Okay.
And in just the past hour or so, and the way that we display lightning for folks at home, the whitish blue, those are the most recent strikes. Then it kind of tapers off to yellow. Several minutes ago, it's orange, and then you kind of get these pale blue where it happened, 15 to 30 minutes ago. Notice the amount of I'm going to call it the white lightning that has, in my opinion, decreased, Tim.
Yeah.
Do you see that as well?
Yeah.
Or am I imagining things on this display?
No, hopefully it's a sign of weakening along with that rotation weakening. Maybe this whole squall line is weakening. We can hope for that at least.
That would be hopeful. And there is a possibility as this line moves to the east. Look, we had earlier this morning, there were some scattered thunderstorms that actually produced some hail in McHenry County, in Lake County, even in northern Cook County. I wonder whether some of those earlier thunderstorms may have turned over the atmosphere just a little bit. Sometimes when you mix the atmosphere, it becomes a little bit less favorable for the new round of thunderstorms to move in. So I'm wondering whether maybe that is eating into some of the intensity of these storms as they move to the east. This is not to say that this thing is done by any stretch. No, we're not. But I'm hopeful that maybe the fact that we had that earlier convection, the thunderstorms that popped up between about 2:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning, whether maybe that could negatively impact some of these storms as they race to the east.
severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 11 o'clock this morning. And as Mike has been pointing out, no doubt that should be allowed to expire early, we think, but it's still ongoing. We've got a couple of warnings here. I want to point out, we've got the tornado warning. Of course, that's of most concern here across DeKalb County now. Just a little portion of DeKalb County in red here underneath that tornado warning as this storm races off to the northeast about 50 miles per hour. There was some fairly decent rotation with this storm about 10, 15 minutes ago, but the environment is changing so quickly. The storms are racing off towards the northeast at such a quick rate, and things are changing at a very rapid pace too. So what we seem to be seeing is a little bit of a weakening with this line and with this individual cell as well. So a little bit less rotation. So hopefully the tornado warning was for the storm that is weakened. That's what we're hoping for. And we haven't gotten any confirmation of an actual tornado yet, so we're waiting for that from the Weather Service. But out ahead of the storm, in anticipation of where the storm is going, it's going to hold together enough that could still cause at least damaging winds and some large hail. So portions of Kane County here, you're under a severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 7 o'clock this morning. We also have Kendall County until 7 o'clock. And now we also have McHenry County, severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 7 o'clock. Let me just give you an idea how quickly the storm is moving as I just put it into motion. This is about an hour. A little more than an hour loop here, and you see how this line raced in from western Illinois, crossed the Mississippi early this morning, is pushing off towards east-northeast. So we were thinking, Mike and I were talking about this earlier today, that would arrive in the city. Let's see, it's almost 6:38. We've got another 7 minutes for that warning. I want to mention that in DeKalb County. But we thought it would arrive in the city around 8 o'clock, maybe even earlier. It's really hauling off towards the north and east, this squall line.
Right. I mean, if there were no traffic and you were driving in from, maybe Big Rock there in southwestern Kane County, and you're able to hop onto 88 in a hurry, you could get downtown in less than an hour, and that's the case with these storms. What I have here, Tim mentioned in yellow, that's a severe thunderstorm watch. They should really start clearing these counties out here. There's nothing going on out there. But we have that tiny little tornado warning. Here's where the rotation seems to be localized, though, and that is actually in Kane County now, where there is a severe thunderstorm warning. And we can look right here. It appears as though rotation's a little bit stronger here, just north of Caneville. This is the first time I've actually seen a little bit of red showing up there in an otherwise green line. And indeed, there's a little bit more rotation going on there, almost 12 meters per second per kilometer. You don't need to know the terms there. Just know that that's a little bit more evidence of spin showing up there south of Elburn, just north of 88 here, very close to Highway 47. This would be getting very close to St. Charles here in about 20 minutes. So look, if you're in Batavia, St. Charles, South Elgin, Carpentersville, I love mentioning Pingree Grove. This is an intense line of thunderstorms where there's at least been some rotation, enough that it warranted the issuance of that tornado warning, which is set to expire here in about 4.5 minutes. But, Tim, you and I have been looking at this, and it's still, it is possible that we get a little bit of weakening of this line as it continues to move to the east. This is still very vigorous. We're not trying to say, hey, this thing is done, we're putting it to bed. But, maybe as this continues to come to the east, it may outrun some of the better instability, and these storms will get a little bit less vigorous.
And I think, as you're pointing out, what we seem to be seeing, I don't know if it's the same storm or a different storm, but this one has kind of outraced the tornado-warned area, which is now eastern DeKalb County, and we're seeing the best shear, the best kind of rotation here, as you were pointing out near Caneville. Let's zoom in and give people an idea. We can zoom in all the way to Elburn there, Timbercrest, let's see, Row Road, Schneider Road, Blackberry Acres area, Ronberry Oaks, some town names that, I'll be honest, I've been doing this for about 35 years here, and I have never seen before, but we're zooming in, and this is where we're seeing probably the greatest rotation. So that doesn't, and it just jumped already. So our latest imagery, our latest data coming in from the Weather Service now shifts more towards the town of Elburn proper. So this is where we're seeing the best rotation, at least according to our radar here, as it moves off towards the northeast. These individual cells are moving at about 50 miles per hour, so it quickly changes, and that's why we're tracking this whole cell, this whole squall line. Let me go back to kind of what we are used to seeing, more traditional, what we call reflectivity, which is basically just showing you how hard it's raining and where it's raining. And where you see some of those purple areas show up here and there, that's where we're seeing the really heavy downpours. And sometimes that does correspond with hail, maybe even tornadoes as well. But the only area that's under the tornado warning right now, this little kind of sliver as it comes to an end right there, eastern DeKalb County, and it's only for about the next couple minutes. Yeah.
Take a look right in here. I'm wondering if this might be a little bit of a rear inflow jet kinking that line just a little bit. This more or less would correspond to where we had that tornado warning. And this is a little bit of a bowing line, and oftentimes the strongest winds occur where you see that kind of convex curve here, or concave, if you will. And so, if you're in Kane County, I think that's the worst of the storms that I'm looking at right now. And there could be some hail in there, but I wouldn't be surprised. Let me turn on the winds there, and let's see what kind of velocity we're getting out of these. Interestingly enough, it looks like northern LaSalle County may have some of the strongest winds, but anywhere within this line, we're getting some pretty vigorous wind activity there. 39 to maybe 40-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts. There's a 54 showing up, at least radar detected in southern DeKalb County. But I think that this is the worst part of the line, coming right through Kane County. You folks there should be, expecting some rough weather. You do have a warning in effect there until, 7 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, to kind of keep it on tap here. Yeah, 7 o'clock is the expiration in Kane, also McHenry County. And that tornado warning, look, the tornado's out of DeKalb County. If there were a tornado, it is out of there now. And we're just, hoping that nothing else spins up there in Kane County. What's our lightning situation, Tim? Let's look at that and see if we've got a little bit less lightning still showing up. Look here, that cell coming out of DeKalb into Kane County does have maybe an uptick, but overall, the line, to me, has much less frequent and new lightning. Looks like McHenry County and Kane County may be getting the worst of the storms currently.
You were talking about that line kind of bowing out in the rear inflow jet. That was probably, the Weather Service thinks, what produced that 80-mile-per-hour gust, 79 actually, in Compton, just south of Rochelle. So that could be what's happening. And literally what happens with these downdrafts, with these thunderstorms, they can kind of pull those strong winds up aloft down to the surface. And that's when we get those really dangerous wind gusts, let alone tornadoes. But wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour can do the same damage as a weaker tornado. So that's what we're watching for. Just to update you on some of the warnings, of course, the entire area, just about all of our viewing area, under severe thunderstorm watch for the next couple of hours, all the way through 11 o'clock. Most likely, most of this is going to be out of here probably by about, say, 9 o'clock or so, maybe 10 o'clock. So that'll probably expire early, but we are under the gun still right now. And this is that one little portion of DeKalb County right here where you can see the red. That is where the tornado warning is, but the storms have outraced that already, as Mike pointed out. So I think that storm that probably caused the concern and where they saw the rotation, at least a radar indicated tornado, that storm has now moved into Kane County. So we don't have any tornado warnings for Kane County, but we do have a severe thunderstorm warning. So I think the Weather Service definitely being cautious because it could still spin up a tornado. Severe thunderstorm warning for Kane County until 7 o'clock this morning, moving north up into Lake County, Crystal Lake, Harvard area. We've got a severe thunderstorm warning also in effect till 7 o'clock this morning, and then moving south. We've got this warning all the way down here in Kendall County until 7 o'clock this morning. This whole line is moving off towards the east. What would you say, Mike, about 60 miles per hour?
Yeah, probably 60. I want to show you what's going on in northwest Indiana here, where there's a severe thunderstorm watch, but we don't have any warnings. Take a look at what's just re-popped. Look, you already went through a 61-mile-an-hour wind gust at Valparaiso. I'm not playing the replay. New thunderstorms, and indeed there is thunder and there is thunder and lightning going on with these cells. Here's right over US 30 coming out of Merrillville, south to Crown Point and Valparaiso. Put this into motion, and you can see the general movement here. It's kind of a north to northeast direction, and there may be some hail again in those. Again, that is not a warned cell. Let me turn off the lightning here. No warnings. It's just a severe. No, wait, how about that? We do have a warning. I'm glad I brought that up then. Let's go ahead and just highlight the warning. This looks almost exactly like the old one. This is for portions of Lake County and also Porter County until 7:30. This is for likely a hail and maybe gusty wind producing cluster of thunderstorms that is ongoing there. That's rather remarkable. I'm kind of glad that I pointed that out. Fortuitous there. Here's another look at those storms. We'll take a closer look. We'll bring you right into Merrillville and also maybe Hobart, Valparaiso. Here is 6. Here's 30. Liberty Park, Crown Point, south to Hawthorne Hills. Almost certainly going to be some hail in that. And then Deep River, north towards Wheeler and South South Haven. Hobart, you're going to get in on the act, and then we'll take you east on 30 into Valparaiso. Heavy rain, lightly some thunder. Let's see if there's any hail showing up. Let me turn on the hail tracker, and boom, there it is. So you've got some hail-producing thunderstorms and maybe some pretty strong winds there as well. These are likely 40 to 50-plus mile-per-hour winds in northwest Indiana, having nothing to do with the main line of storms that we have been highlighting here coming in from the west. So it just kind of erupting in this warmth and humidity, Tim. Additional storms out ahead of the main show.
Incredible. I drove in to work this morning about 1 o'clock, 1:30, and we saw temperatures. I saw temperatures in the 60s already. So that's fueling these storms. It's very warm, moist air and some very cold air up aloft. I just want to point out, first, bring you up to date, that tornado warning, as Mike has already pointed out, but just to remind you, that is expired now for DeKalb County, no longer in effect. But there is out ahead of that the same area, that same portion of the squall line that was producing what was possibly a tornado. Never got actual confirmation on the ground. That is still prompting a severe thunderstorm warning for Kane County. That's in effect until 7 o'clock this morning, so another 15 minutes or so. McHenry County also, you have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect. I want to zoom in to where we're seeing the heaviest rain. So there might be some hail with this. There might be some gusty winds as well, but at the very least, and look, it already shifted so quickly. These storms are moving off towards the northeast, about 50, 60 miles an hour. So we're looking at McDonald Road here. Also Sturbridge, Oak Bluff. You're seeing some heavy downpours here. I'll go up a little further north. And this is where we thought maybe that cell kind of split, or at least another cell developed. This is Prairie Oaks area. Freeman Road, you're seeing some very heavy downpours. And finally, no warning for this one, but this just popped up in the last about 10 minutes, Mike. All of a sudden, we saw this cell pop up. This is in Lake County. So the Gages Lake area, Grandwood Park, along Route 21 here, seeing some heavy downpours. And this is kind of intensified very rapidly. And that's what we're seeing with these cells. They go from nothing to a pretty impressive big thunderstorm in about 15, 20 minutes.
We're getting close to home for me, as you know there. I'm sure that the Jesse Oaks and Gages Lake and my friends that run Saludos and Backyard Steak Pit in Grandwood Park, they're getting some heavy rain, maybe a little bit of hail there as well. Folks driving in maybe from Lake Villa and Lindenhurst, trying to get to the tri-state, encountering that right now. So I'm glad you pointed out that cell. Again, that's one of several that are kind of erupting ahead of the main line. Now, I wonder, Tim, whether maybe I'm not seeing it, whether maybe that cell in Lake County could be caused by an outflow boundary from this main line of storms coming through McHenry County. Sometimes there's a gush of cool air. If you've ever seen a shelf cloud at home.
It looks very ominous.
Yeah, very ominous. That is caused by the gust front. There's a gush of cold air blowing out of these thunderstorms ahead of the line, and sometimes that kind of creates a mini cold front ahead of the storms, and that gets the lift going ahead of that. So let's say maybe there'll be some new storms that pop up in DuPage and Cook County ahead of this line as well. But I think it's kind of interesting, Tim, that we're left with right now, besides these isolated cells in northwest Indiana, with regards to the main line. And they have started clearing some of the counties to the west, by the way, of the severe thunderstorm watch. Only Kane and McHenry County have warnings. The south end of this, remember earlier, we had a warning in LaSalle County and part of Kendall County, and nothing new has come out for that portion of the line. Maybe there is a little bit of weakening there, especially in the south end of things. Let's look at and even the preponderance of the lightning. Just take a look here. And once again, there's very little lightning south of I-80. There's a little bit there as you get towards Minonk and Pontiac going into Livingston County. But by far, the most lightning in two locations here, northern Kane and McHenry County, and then this activity in northwest Indiana that has prompted the new warning. So I still think I'm seeing signs of general weakening, Tim.
Yeah, which is good news. You're talking about that gust front. If you've lived in Chicago long enough, during spring or summer, we've all experienced that. It's a hot, humid day, and all of a sudden you get these wind shift, and you get this kind of cool breeze. That is that rain-cooled air coming out of the base of the thunderstorm. It's heavy, hits the ground, spreads out very rapidly. I'm not seeing the bowing as much, I think, along this line. That's also a good indication. When we see that bow echo, it's like a portion of the squall line kind of moves out ahead of the rest of it. That's usually almost a sure sign, a sure indicator that you're going to get winds in excess of 70 miles an hour. Not seeing that, but still, these storms could still be producing some very damaging winds. Right now, this is the warning, as Mike was pointing out, for Kane County until 7 o'clock. Severe thunderstorm warning. There are no tornado warnings in effect as of this moment. I hesitate. I want to look and make sure because things are changing so rapidly. But as of this moment, we also have the severe thunderstorm warning for McHenry County. That's in effect till 7 o'clock. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see northern Cook County, including this, maybe DuPage County, and also parts of Lake County. The only thing that would prevent that from happening is if this line continues to weaken, but seems to be holding together enough that they might prompt a warning from the National Weather Service. And just to show you again, I'm going to click on this little indicator here. The strongest part of this line right now as it moves just north of Elburn. It's going to be arriving here. Here's some of the arrival times. Hanover Park, about 15 minutes. South Barrington, about 17 minutes. Schaumburg, about 17 minutes. At the very least, you're going to get some heavy rains, heavy downpours, maybe some hail with this, and maybe some damaging winds. But the whole line, and this individual cell at least, is moving off to the northeast at about 64 miles per hour. So when we see storms, Mike, move that quickly, we know if we can translate any of that energy to the surface, we're going to get some damaging winds at the very least, right?
Exactly. You know, we've been talking about rotation. Rotation does not mean tornado. It means where there's a little bit of extra spin going on within the line. In green is right now where the bulk of the rotation is occurring, and it's pretty much right on top of the Fox River. This is going to be moving at about 60 miles per hour. So from Crystal Lake through Algonquin, West Dundee, Elgin, St. Charles, Batavia, even as far south as Aurora, that's where there's still a little bit of spin within the line of thunderstorms that are working their way out of Kane and McHenry County towards Lake County, northwestern Cook County, and western DuPage County. So you can see the rotation that continues to advance to the east. Now let's go ahead and look at just plain old radar display here. This is the reflectivity mode, and I'll zoom out a little bit. And again, it's still a very impressive line of thunderstorms, still lightning there, but the bulk of the lightning is in the northern half of this line and really focused, I think, in northern Kane County. I think that's by far the worst of it here. So if you're in Elgin, I bet the sky is just absolutely flashing almost nonstop. You've got thunder if you're in Ottawa, if you're in Streeter, that far south in LaSalle County, you're hearing thunder. If you're in Aurora, you're hearing thunder. I bet if you're in Naperville, hey, what's that out to the west? Was that a rumble of? Yeah, that's absolutely going on. But the worst of the storm is sitting right there near Elgin. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that, and you can see right over 90. And I think, don't we have a photographer in the storm tracker truck headed out that way, Tim? I believe that we dispatched our buddy in that direction. So I don't know if he's in that yet or not, but bingo, there you go. And I'm assuming that is Elgin. I'm going to ask a producer or director to confirm if indeed that. Yes, all right. So our intrepid photographer, Emmanuel Zoom, that's his new name today. He is in the Stormforce tracker truck, and he is driving right into the teeth of this storm, pouring down rain there. Does not look like he's seeing any hail, but definitely you get an idea. A lot of water coming up off the highway there, and it is pouring in Elgin. That is some of the worst of the storm right now. Tim?
I'm going to stay focused. I work with him every day, so I need him.
You have my sympathy.
Yeah, I need him for the rest of the week. But if the producers can get his actual street location, that would be great. I do want to zoom back in because this portion of the line, remember there was a tornado warning that expired at about 15 minutes ago for DeKalb County. This line appears to have weakened. We don't see as much rotation, but this is what's left of that stronger portion of that line, as we pointed out, which is now looks like right over or just east of the Elgin area. Where you see the purple, that's where it's really coming down hard. So we'll zoom in here along Route 20, State Street as it goes through 31, also Liberty Street. That's where you're seeing some of the heaviest downpours here. And just to give you some arrival times, not a tornado warning, this is a severe thunderstorm warning for Kane County, but still, you're going to get some heavy rain, maybe some hail with this, and maybe some gusty winds. So here's where the storm is going to arrive and when it's going to arrive. Schaumburg in about 15 minutes, Inverness in about 16 minutes, Lake Barrington just under 20 minutes. That's where the storm is headed. I wanted to check, we haven't checked hail recently, but yep. So we're getting a good indication that this could be producing some pretty large hail. Yesterday we got reports of hail, what was it, up to tennis ball size hail?
Yeah. As
the storm came through, so at minimum you have to worry a little bit about that. And that's where we're seeing the center of the storm, some of the worst hail markers right here in Elgin, downtown Elgin.
Did you see that we got the new, I didn't hear you, Tim, forgive me, that we have new warnings now for northern Cook and a big portion of Lake County.
Yeah.
So severe thunderstorm warnings there. There's not tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings for hail and gusty winds, which include include roughly the southeast two-thirds of Lake County and far northern Cook County. This would include places like Arlington Heights. This would include Palatine, Wheeling, Northbrook, Highland Park, Lake Zurich, maybe as far north as Waukegan, and even Zion. So that will be in effect until 7:30. If you're in those areas, prepare for damaging storms. Tim and I will continue our coverage of storms here on Good Day Chicago. More of Fox 32's coverage of severe weather and all the day's news coming up.